Rat dungeon. If you were alive in London, England during the medieval period, you would have definitely heard about the rat dungeon, since this punishment struck paralyzing fear into the hearts of even the most hardened criminals. This was a cell that was located at the bottom of the London Tower, where prisoners were shackled and chained in complete darkness. But here's the thing. The dungeon was connected to the nearby river, and just below the river's waterline, so that when the water levels rose, all the rats that lived along the riverbed would be pushed out of their shelters and forced to swim downstream. This would, of course, lead the hungry and angry rats towards the entrance of the dungeon, where they would then come face to face with the prisoner. But to the unlucky prisoner, he never actually saw anything, and all he would hear were the soft scurries of the rats' feet entering the dungeon. And in a matter of minutes, these soft noises were in the hundreds. And all around him, these angry and aggressive rats would then begin to take small bites from the prisoner, who had no way of defending himself now. He might be able to shake the rats off for a few hours, but eventually the prisoner would pass out from pure exhaustion. And while he slept, the rats would continue to take bites from his flesh. Eventually, when he would wake up, he would discover hundreds of bites throughout his entire body. But it didn't stop there. The prisoner was left here for days or weeks on end, depending on his crime. But towards the end of the medieval period, this form of punishment just got more and more deranged, eventually becoming a form of execution, where prisoners would just be thrown in the dungeon and forgotten about. Hill-hauling. This brutal punishment was carried out at sea on sailors who would steal or be violent towards others, and would usually result in death. Keel-hauling would start with a sailor having his arms tied with the rope, then looped around the entire circumference of the ship, before being tied off to his feet. The sailor would then be thrown overboard while the group of men on board pulled on the rope to slowly drag him around the outside of the ship, including over the keel, which is how this punishment gets its name. But a lot of the time, the sailor wouldn't even have to worry about it, since they were dead before they ever reached it. Kind of just depends on how hard the guys on the rope feel like working that day. Not only would the sailors be drowning and getting their backs and necks broken on the keel, they were also getting sliced apart like a cheese grater by all the sharp barnacles on the outside of the ship. But if by some miracle a sailor actually happens to make it all the way around the ship without dying, one of three things will happen. One, he would be sent for round 2, and for sure be dead by then, to be freed and allowed back on the ship, where he would then slowly die to infections. Or 3, live the rest of his life single, and being made fun of, since he was now fully covered in scars from head to toe. This is one of the most sick punishments in all of human history, and it involves the use of rats. I will cover 2 of them here, as they are very similar. The first use of this form of punishment dates back to 1568. During the 80 Years' War, a Dutch leader named Diederik would often use this method of punishment, which involved placing a rat inside of a clay bowl, then placing it topside down on a prisoner's stomach, chest, face, or groin. Then the back of the bowl would be heated either with a torch or some coals, causing the rat to go into a full-on panic, trying to escape from the heat. Its only way out was to burrow into the human. Once inside, it would continue to chew and tear apart whatever was in its way, desperately searching for a way out. Eventually, the rat finds its way out of the maze and survives. The same could not be set for the prisoner, but the second method was much, much worse and was highly secretive, since it was used under the guidance of the dictator Augusto Pinochet, where he held power from 1976 through 1983. They called it the rectoscope. And I'm sure already figured out where this is going. Yes, it's exactly what you think. They would place a tube on a prisoner's back door, then insert a rat inside of the tube. The rat would then begin to burrow its way in, These people were so
that
sick
they actually expected
the prisoners to answer questions. While this was going on, eventually the rat would find its way in and begin to move forward to find its way out. Nobody really knows how many people died from this punishment, but we do know that a ton of people went missing when this dictator was in charge.